Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Fear Alchemist. My name is Ben Harris, your host. I'm stoked to have my friend Dr. Neeta Bhushan on the podcast today. She just released a new book called That Sucked, Now What? And I highly recommend it for anyone who is really struggling or going through a hard time, or just anyone who is wondering, how do you bounce back after going through something pretty shitty or sucky? Like, when you go through something so hard, how do you bounce back from it? We even do a little impromptu coaching session together on this podcast, and it could definitely hit some sore spots for some of you, but at the same time be incredibly helpful for fear of rejection, abandonment, not feeling seen or heard as a kid. This is going to be really helpful for you. And I deeply appreciate Neeta's bravery for going here and allowing people to listen and see her and her fears and insecurities. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Please rate and review on whatever platform you are listening or watching on, because it really helps this show get noticed and get recommended to other people that are searching for this information and this wisdom and these perspectives and this content to enrich and to uplift their life. And without any more talking, let's get into it, y'all. Thank you for being here. Let's go. Neeta, we're here.
Okay, we are. We are. I mean, I talk about bravery and you talk about fear, so this is, bring it on.
This is, I know, and it's so perfect. There's synergy in so many ways. And it is funny. We were talking before this of like, no matter how many times you do a thing, like there's obviously still fear. Like you talked about the cold plunge, and like on your podcast, you're talking about the cold plunge, how you still resist it. And like I did one 2 days ago, and it was like the same story. Like I love it. Like I love the cold, but it was still just like, fuck, like, why am I going to do this? Like this is miserable. But again, like I know that's like a calling into it. So as we begin this, I'm curious, what is your first memory, or maybe just a poignant, like important one that made an impact on you, of like fear and bravery?
Yeah. So first memory, well, I guess the one that's really vivid that just came up in mind right now, was, it's a big story, but it's around when I had to have been about maybe 10 or 11, maybe even 12, but I know I was in grade school or elementary school for folks who are not in the US, and I was at the mall as you do. As you do. And so, well, actually, I can share that story, but I think it'll be even more relevant and more contextual to share this other story. So this was still grade school, elementary school, 7th grade. And this was my first foray into standing up to a bully. Yeah, not fun at all. I remember vividly being in the bathroom, and like grew up in Chicago, went to Chicago public schools. It was like a magnet school, so it was one of those things. And so where you have to test into it, and I remember I was in, I think it was like the 6th or the 7th grade. And early on, because I was so racially ambiguous, I would get a lot of attention because nobody could peg, like in the school that I went to, most people were either black or they were Spanish or Hispanic or Latino. So they were, and then there was like a sliver, maybe like 1 or 2 people that were Indian. And then there's me, which is like hodgepodge. And so, when you're young, you really want to fit in, and you want to fit in so hard. And this was before I would get into a lot of the big losses in my life. But particularly getting into, it was like the 6th or the 7th grade. And for me, you know, I had my group of girlfriends, but I was starting to get like noticed by boys. And so, and you know, it's like no one could ever figure out where I was from. I wasn't, you know, really Spanish, but I wanted to be because all my friends were and they spoke Spanish, and I kind of looked like I could be. And then all the Indian kids would get made fun of because, you know, the smart ones, and that was a big thing. And so I definitely did not want to be made fun of, right? And it wasn't cool to be Indian back then. Now it is with all the yoga and all of the turmeric and the supplements.
All the turmeric. Ah, that's great.
So true, right? And I remember belonging was a big thing. And so when these girls were like saying, you know, the meanest things, coming up to me in the lunch hall, and vividly, like, just I was in the bathroom and they started spreading this rumor, and even like now I'm starting even to feel it as I'm like about to share this, but they were spreading this rumor that I was like stuffing my bra. And that was like a huge thing. And even right now I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, okay, there's just there's something still there. And fine, for those listening, you're like, all right, stuffing your bra, like how bad was it? But imagine like a 11 or 12-year-old trying to fit in, and these girls are, you know, the mean girls are spreading these rumors because maybe they liked the boy that liked me or what have you. And it was just this like, so I was so afraid to go to use the bathroom.
Just in general. Like
just in general,
just to use it.
Because that was the first initiation of like me going for the first time when this started to happen, running into my bullies, like the girl. I mean, it's literally like Clueless, the movie, if you grew up then, or, you know, Mean Girls. It's like the one main girl and then her two sidekicks. That was literally like what I was going through. And I'm laughing about it now, but it wasn't really so funny. Where I would go home and tell my parents, and it was just like this wasn't something they held because they were immigrants. My dad was from India. My mom was from the Philippines. They're like, go study harder. Like, who cares? And for me, it's like, I was like, I would come home crying, like not wanting to go to school for a period of this time that felt like a really long time. Yet, and I would hold my pee. I would hold like everything because I didn't want to go to the bathroom. Because I was confronted, and, you know, either she threatened to, like, you know, she was like bullying me, or it was like it was just a whole thing where I didn't want to be cornered in the bathroom. And so I remember going into the bathroom for the very first time because I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like praying, like, okay, they're not going to be in there. She's not going to be in there. And well, here we are. She was there. And she just took one look at me, and I said, you know, I just blurted out. I'm like, you know, it's not true. And that's all I said. But I remember that moment of like, that real, like, my worst fear came true. I did not want to run into the bathroom, and I did. You know, it was like, it's kind of the feelings of like, oh, you know, you don't want to manifest running into somebody that like, and of course, the, you know, whether it's an ex or a friend that you had a falling out with, and then boom, lo and behold, it's like at a cafe that you all frequent at. Well, that was me in like the 7th grade, you know? And so, and after, I felt so good because the girl didn't say anything. She could have punched me in the face. I mean, we were in Chicago public school, so that could have happened. But I was so afraid of the fear of like the what ifs. Like, what if she had something with her? What if, you know, what if she just started beating up on me? Because that was a thing where I went to school. And so, but I faced her. I said what I said. I mean, and here I am today. So, wow, I haven't revisited that memory. I don't think I've ever told that story ever anywhere.
Well, thank you for telling it.
Yeah, that's big.
Well, like, it's cool, and we didn't, of course, like, this really isn't planned, and that's why I love it so much. It's like just stepping into this space, because I know that probably has a connection to what we're about to like talk about next. And I just want to acknowledge that, though, like how cool. I mean, it's like a movie, but it's so real, because I imagine so many people have gone through that, like kids are going through that now, of because as adults, most of the time the fears we deal with are like imaginary.
Yep.
You know, it's like it's an illusion of, like, how I look at anxiety is like it's like a fear of what's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And so, like, of course our mind over analyzes to make sure that thing doesn't happen, but like that's a very like real threat. Like, you're in Chicago, like you could get beat up, like all these things. And then that of course influences so many other things potentially, like in your life. And then you go home, and this is probably what I'm feeling called to go into next. It, like, again, at any time, say yes or no.
Yeah, go for it.
But it's like, I imagine, right? Like, you're going to your parents, like, and I know, like, I feel it right now. Like, you were saying something was coming up and you feel it now, and you haven't revisited that in a long time, and you haven't told that story. When you think about going and asking, right, your parents for something that's literally like, I feel like I'm in danger, not just like, get me out of this class, I hate it. It's literally like, I'm in danger, like like really. And it was essentially, or maybe actually, ignored. What is the feeling that you feel like now, and when you were revisiting that scene?
Yeah. That it wasn't safe. Wasn't safe to share. Rejected. Can't even say it. Rejected.
Yeah, I had a feeling. The rejection.
It's big. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Whoa.
So it's like, when you, like, where do you feel that in your body? Yeah.
Fully in my, in my chest. Even a little bit like in my stomach. And I battled anxiety for many years, for sure, especially in my 20s. The full stomach, panic-ridden anxiety. I mean, I grew up with that, for sure. I just had words for it much later in life, but yeah.
And so I imagine, like, how often do you feel like you revisit? I know it's much better and much different, you know, but like, how often do you feel like just this feeling, even if it's not a conscious awareness, that this feeling pops up in your chest?
Anytime that I have to do something big or ask. And, you know, I know that for people who probably know me as holding a lot of space for a lot of people, that's hard to actually even fathom.
And like, you on stages and you on the microphone. Yeah. Like, and I honor you. Like, thank you for doing this. Like, it's, keep going. I just love it.
I mean, Ben, whoa, your process is big. Thank you for ushering me in here. Yeah, I didn't realize how big that rejection piece has been for, like, I mean, it's been kind of this thread where, yes, I'll do it. And yes, I will. I mean, it's part of the business. It's part of the way that I recruit team members, the way that I build teams. Yet every time I definitely feel that. I feel that even when we're restructuring teams or another team member leaves for whatever reason, I find it hard not to go into that rejection piece and taking it personal. Like, oh, I could have been a better leader, or how could I have made them like me?
Oof, I just got chills for that one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh.
I resonate with that one too.
How could I make them like me? Because I guess, yeah, why would the bullies not like me?
And it's, and what's really important that I think surprises a lot of people is, yeah, it's like, feel the fear and do it anyway. but it's like we don't realize how often these things are still like in the background. And the example I like to use is like you're driving down the highway with your brakes on, because you are still obviously doing all the things. You are brave, and it's like, but I still have this conflicting like protection mechanism, like don't do it, don't, like, and you feel that again and again and again.
I'm still holding to my chest because I'm like, I need to calm my nervous system.
Right. And like, and that's, and again, right, is just to point out like how brave you are in this moment, because it's, and I just got chills again, is like the very like idea of fear biologically and also like energetically and spiritually is this, right? Like exactly what you're feeling is like that feeling comes up because it's a reminder of, oh, I don't want to feel that again. Like it's literally, it's like what I said on your podcast, right? Is fear is love in disguise, because it loves you. It's like, I don't want Neeta like to hurt again. Like I don't, and I imagine like those things of, you know, trying to make them like you, but like when you tap back into what did you feel with your parents, and I'm not sure how much you've visited this memory, it could be new or something you already know, like what was that reflection, or you probably didn't know it then, but putting words to it now, what was like not just the feeling in your chest, but the actual thought or the belief or the story that was like implanted?
Yeah. I think the story that I carried was, okay, I need to perform. I need to be getting straight A's for them to actually validate me or see me or achieve, because that's all that mattered. And if I'm sharing something where I'm like viscerally in pain, viscerally in need, I was shut down completely, because there was no place for that. Yeah, I mean, and it's it's one of the big reasons, you know, of me writing this next book, and how and even revisiting not this particular memory, but that was a constant. Yeah, because like, you're tough. Because Neeta, you're tough.
That's tough. What they said.
Oh yeah, you're tough. So it wasn't that instance. That was like, they didn't even understand what bully was. Sure. Like they were like, go study. Is this an excuse that you're telling me not to go do your homework? And it was just like I was fully gaslit. You know, now I have words for that, you know, but yeah, I did not feel like I was heard. Yeah. And it would be, I mean, I shared this, you know, on your IG Live, but much later, when I would go through the loss of my mom, you know, when I was like 11 or 12 at the time, she had already had her first bout with cancer, but things didn't really get serious until, you know, like a few years later, when then she would actually pass on from that. And the first thing that I was told from everyone, including my father, was, Neeta, you're strong. You're the oldest. You're the eldest. You're strong. You got this. That's what resilience is. Again, no place to hold sadness, grief, fear, uncertainty, vulnerability. So for me, you know, everything I did was like extra positive, extra enthusiastic. You know, people would usually ask, like, how are you so positive and you've just, you know, lost people in your life? And I never really understood what that meant. I'm like, what do you mean? and now I do, because I've now fit a space for that part of myself that still wants to come up and show up, because she was never allowed to finally, like, share, shed tears, wail, cry, let it out, because that was foreign.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing this so much. And it's like nothing's wrong with that. I just want to point out, right, is like, that's our, like, humans are so incredible that we adapt to literally keep ourselves safe, right? As like, okay, something bad happened, and so it's like I will form something so I don't feel that again. Like, it's actually pretty incredible if you think about it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's like, and it's funny because I'm looking at like when I was driving over here today, like because I've never met you in person, but I was like I noticed your energy and excitement is just like, it's not over the top in any way, but it's just so like contagious is the word I would use. And of course, like all of us, right, like our personalities also come from like trauma responses.
Totally.
And so if like, and you dropped into the piece of like needing to perform, essentially there's not room or space for you to feel anything but strong and positive and perform and do all this stuff. So it's like, if you could, like, what did that mean like for you as a person? Like I have a thing that's like coming up, but I'd love to hear like what you're feeling of, like, essentially in that moment, what did you take away? Meanings like the deeper, so let's like, okay, I can only feel strong, I can only perform, I have to be positive. So what's beneath that if I'm not positive, if I'm not performing?
Yeah, that I'm not worthy, that I'm not enough.
What do you feel? Does it resonate like you don't matter?
Oh, that I don't matter, that I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
That I'm not accepted, that I don't belong. If I'm not providing, giving, overgiving, adding value, contributing, another big one.
Right. And before we recorded, you even mentioned like the overgiving. And so it's interesting.
The overgiving to fit in, the overgiving to prove the worthiness.
Yeah, and receive love, I imagine.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So how are you feeling? Let's just revisit that for a moment. Not the normal.
Ugh. No, this is good. It's like there's so many things that are like swirling and moving, and needs a place to just release and like exhale.
Yeah, can we just close our eyes for a moment? You guys were always kind of closed.
Yes, I'm going inward. Yes.
Yeah, let's just take a few deep breaths. Breathe in. I just want to say thank you to Neeta's fear. For one, keeping her safe, and this story safe, and this pain safe, of not wanting to revisit the pain of not being lovable, not mattering, not belonging. Thank you for keeping this so safe for us, and also thank you for revealing this and her higher self, her deepest, most loving, authentic self, for this to be brought up and talked about and felt. And in this moment, how awesome and how safe it is, and to consciously recognize and acknowledge how powerful it is to just feel in this vulnerable moment with these feelings and memories coming up, that it is safe, that you do belong, that you are loved, and that anything brought up in this moment is held by you, by me, by the space, by the world. And thank you for that version, that 10, 11, 12-year-old, for allowing us to be seen and heard and felt and expressed. Let's take a deep breath. Is there anything you want to say in this space specifically?
That you are loved. You are held. And I just honor you, Ben, for taking me through this really amazing journey back home, back to the little Neeta, the little girl that just wanted to be heard and loved and seen, accepted. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so now, right, is, okay, how do I shift going forward? Because it's like, of course, we can still feel these instances of like these memories and these pings, right, of pain coming up. But now you know, right? And we went down a rabbit hole that, like, at the beginning, before we started recording, was about you asking for like a big endorsement with your new book.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes.
Right. And so essentially what your mind and fear is protecting you from, like, well, if I don't get that endorsement, if that person, or all the other stories that you talked about, right, of like, if this thing doesn't happen, then it means what to you? If you could just choose one, what was the most poignant thing? The most resonant? Like, can we say his name, or should we keep his name out?
Yeah, we can. Absolutely. Sure, we can. Yeah, so I was just telling Ben before this, one of my growth edges was leaning into, I think asking people for help. And as when you write a book, the book doesn't market itself.
Yeah.
And so this book has been such a labor of love, and it's talking about the sucky moments, and funny enough, leaning into the suck, leaning into, the fear, which is why I wanted to have this conversation here too. And the book's called That Suck Now What? And everyone had told me that, who are the top few people that you would love? Like, who's your wish list? Who would you love to get, to endorse your book? And the very first person was, Jay Shetty for me. And, it's, we're definitely friends. We've known each other, but I hadn't spoken to him in like 4 or 5 years. And at that time, our families, we both lived in LA. He was just like moving to LA. So we were able to have a few just memorable moments, and it was really nice. And then of course life's changed, and he has been on this like huge trajectory. And I think the big fear for me was I don't want to be like probably the 1,000 people that probably ask him for something. And I remember one of my dearest friends is just like, love, what are you doing? You have to put yourself out there. And I'm like, I know, I talk about bravery all the time. Why can't I do this? And I didn't revisit this particular fear from when I was younger, but the fear of, yes, rejection has been big. And I think, and I had to, my process before you, Ben, my process was, all right, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is they can say no. Yeah. And what meaning could I make it in my mind? Or what meaning is it like that it is just what it is, right? And I had a few more people like on the list as well. And so I had to really like breathe into it and like, all right, I remember I was at a conference, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And because I have his number still. And so, and I just reached out how I normally would a friend, because it was fine for me to ask all of the other people, but I waited on this one particular person to ask. And I just leaned into my authenticity of what I remembered our moment when I was, like 8 months pregnant or whatever with Ari. We went to his birthday party. And before that, I think a few weeks before that, we had went out to dinner. And so it was just like, just remembering those memories and just sharing like, hey, wow, what a journey you've been on, and just touching base, which then turned into a couple of exchanges. And then I finally stepped into my discomfort and my fear and asked. And what the beauty of that ask was, he's like, I know how hard it is to ask. So he even saw me in that.
Cool.
And so he's like, I just want to honor you in that. And yes, of course I'd support. And my big ask was, well, okay, would you be open to endorsing my book? And even just like phrasing it and having the words come out loud, that was such a big fear, because even in the ask, you're kind of like, okay, phrasing the words in that way. And that's big, and even somebody like me who talks about bravery, and in that, I don't even think I've even shared this on my own podcast yet. And a few days ago, he said yes.
Yeah.
And that was huge. I mean, it felt good to even just get it out there, right? Like, even the cold plunge example, right? We know it's painful. We know we don't want to do it during it. It's like, can I do this for a really long time? I don't even know. But then after, you're like, whoa, okay, I did that. Your body's like still like reveling from like the ice cold shock.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, wow. All right. If I can do this, like, what else can I do?
Yeah. And like, what's cool, right, is like literally if you wouldn't have asked, that wouldn't have happened. And that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so big that happened, like, which is freaking awesome. And also, I think it's funny that we asked the question, what's the worst that can happen? Because that's actually like, that's the reason why we're not doing it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, because they would say no.
Yeah. That's funny, right? Is like that's technically what we go to. And for you and for everyone listening, of the reason we're not doing the thing, right? Of like if he did say no.
Right. That's the big one.
Like, what is it like for you if that wouldn't have happened, if he said, no, I don't have time, or no, it's not in alignment, or no, whatever, is like, whatever the reason may be, like, I'm not good enough. Is that what immediately comes up?
Yeah. It's like, I'm not good enough. I don't matter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's like, and so I just want to point out, like, that's the reason we're actually not doing the thing.
Yeah.
Is it's like, it's not because he's going to say no. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. But the deeper reason is like, is like, why we're not posting on Instagram, why we're not expressing our truth to our partners, whatever the thing may be, is like, oh yeah, it sucks if they say no or people don't like it. But the deeper reason is like, oh, I don't matter. So it's just more evidence, like, that you are trying to avoid, because then that would just prove like, oh, look, I shouldn't have done this. I don't matter. I'm not good enough. And so it completely makes sense why we avoid it, because we don't want that to happen. But it's like, and I know you know this, but it's like, is it true? Like, if he says no, that you're not good enough and that you don't matter?
No.
No.
Not at all. There's some really great friends of mine that would say otherwise, right?
Yeah, and even you. It's
so true. Yeah. So true. So true.
And is it helpful to think that you don't matter and that you're not good enough? Big sigh.
No, but I feel like it's like that reminder of like maybe the little girl in me that still needs that tenderness.
Mm-hmm. Because like, and why it's not ultimately helpful, right, is because if you don't, like, in this big example, and there's so many other micro examples, but like, if you would have not have asked, what would have happened?
I wouldn't have gotten this huge endorsement.
And because you don't ask, who rejected you?
Myself.
Which proves what?
That I don't matter.
Boom.
Oh.
Yes, that one.
It's a mic drop.
Yeah. Right. And so it's funny that most of us don't realize that, like, fear does the exact thing that we're trying to avoid. It's like, if I don't make this ask because I'm afraid of not mattering and being rejected, so to keep myself safe, I will reject myself and then provide the same evidence because I still didn't get the evidence or the response that I wanted. So therefore, I don't matter, but I'm the one who proves it.
And I'm perpetuating that.
Yep.
And I'm perpetuating that cycle and cycle and cycle, and I'm not able to break out of that cycle.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I think this week, this conversation is so perfect, and I love it because I believe we just broke a cycle.
We did. No, it's huge. Yeah, I didn't realize that also. It is that rejection of myself, saying that I don't matter. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. So it's like, instead of...
And then there goes the overgiving, and then there goes like the coping mechanisms, the overdoing,
Because what are you trying to prove?
That I do matter.
Exactly.
Oh.
I overgive, so therefore I matter.
Mm-hmm.
I need to sacrifice and abandon myself so I can receive love and I matter, and all the other things we can go down the rabbit hole. But like, last question for you is like, instead of I don't matter and I'm not good enough, what, like, if you could literally reprogram your body and your brain and your DNA, what would you want to believe? Or what do you want to believe?
I am brave.
Ooh, yeah.
I am, oh gosh, this is a mantra I would say after my divorce. I am brave, I am bold, and I am unapologetic.
And like, what truth do you actually like know about you?
That I am whole.
Boom.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so good, Ben.
Thanks for going here.
Wow, we did it. Oh my God.
Right. And so like, how does that feeling of I am whole feel?
It feels expansive. It feels full, and it feels like just lack of, it just feels easy. It feels inflow.
Yeah, because if you're whole, then it doesn't matter what anyone says or does. And most likely, like, those results that you're looking for will happen because you're already in the frequency of wholeness.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. This was so good.
Good. Thank you for going here.
Wow.
All right. I release you from the depths of your fear. But truly, like, thank you for going there. And that truly is like an embodiment of who you are that most people won't do. Instead of like, let me just tell the story that I know and that I'm good at telling. So I love that you truly like went to an edge, and that tells a lot about you as a leader.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for your gifts and how you are serving at such a huge level. And I mean, this is turning fear on its head for so many people. So appreciate you.
Of course. And with the most heartfelt ask that you can, for everybody listening and watching right now, what would you ask them to do?
Yeah, I would definitely ask, go and support this book, buy a copy. thatsuckednowwhat.com. Get a copy for your friend. I mean, this is the book that helps build resilience, to helps brave the sucky moments that we all go through in life, and so that we can arrive at our own wholeness. So that's my big ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And anywhere else people can connect with you?
Yeah, Neeta Bhushan on Instagram. I'm on IG most of the time. Send me a DM. I have a weekly podcast. We drop 2 a week at the Brave Table, and Ben's episode is on the Brave Table as well.
Boom. Well, thank you all, and that's a wrap.